And this far, we glorify his name. Yes. This morning, I want to give a testimony that I'm saved and God loves me so much. Last year, at a time like this, I was in a place that I could not have spoken the way I'm speaking today. So as I was going through and meditating upon the word of God, and God was reminding me of his love for us. And I was remembering last year, the way it was. If it were not for the Lord, today we would not be having somebody called Sister Wangeshi. But because God loves us so much, today I am here as a testimony of what he has done in my life. Amen. I know we were many during that time. Some lasted, they went to be with the Lord. But I remember one thing I told God that time. I told God that I am your child, I am your daughter. Whatever you want to do with me, I am ready. But I had one prayer to make to God. I told God, I am sick, but I believe this is the year of restoration. And when you be restoring me, you'll be healing me. You will restore back to me everything the enemy has stolen from me. Amen. And today I have a testimony that when God healed me, God has restored most of the things the enemy had stolen from me. Amen. Whatever the devil had taken away from me, God has restored back to me. And that is my testimony this day. And because today we are talking about communication, we are communicating. And when we share these testimonies, why do we share them? Why do we share testimonies? I'll ask you, Wamutunga, is it necessary to share testimonies?
Yes. Yes, it encourages us.
It encourages somebody. It gives us hope. Yes. Our sister here.
It strengthens us and gives glory to the Lord.
Amen. It strengthens us and God is glorified. You know, he feels good when we speak good about what he has done for us. Yeah, when we say God is able to do exceedingly, abundantly, above all we can ask him or even imagine. And that is what he has done for me. At one time, I know I had given up because I felt that my doctors have done so much for me. Now amefika mwisho, you know, and they are saying it. But one thing that gave me hope is that even when they had done all what they did for me, he said one thing: God is able. You know, for us as human beings, tukifika mwisho, tunafika, but God picks it up because he's able to do exceedingly, abundantly, above all we can ask or even imagine. So today we are going to look at the issue of communication. And basically I will only facilitate, and we are going to share. And we are going to build one another. Because human beings, when God created us, he created us in his own image. And when he created Adam and he created Eve, we read from the Bible that he used to visit them. He used to visit them. Why was God visiting Adam and Eve? I want to believe he was visiting them and he was communicating to them. True or false? So, in the image of God, we have been created to be social beings, and social beings communicate one with another. So, there are many writers who have written so many things about communication. But for us Christians, we have a book here that teaches us so much about communication. So we'll be making reference to the reference material for our communication. And I want first to define communication from the perspective of the many writers who have written about communication. And what do they say communication is? They say communication is a process of exchanging ideas, thoughts, opinions, knowledge, and information. So when we are communicating, we are exchanging ideas. So in communication, we have the sender who is communicating to somebody on the other side, and the somebody on the other side is the receiver. I am here studying as a sender of this information that we are sharing today. And you are the recipient, you are receiving that information. So in this process of communicating from the sender to the receiver, we use a medium. And today, what medium am I using? I'm speaking to you. I'm talking to you. And for you to receive this message, you must listen. True or false? You will listen, and when you listen, you will hear the message. So when I look at you, I can see you are hearing the message. You are hearing the message, and you are listening because you looking at me, I can see you are giving me a feedback that we are together, we are hearing this information. So in the process of communication, the receiver must be in a position to hear the information the sender is sending. And when the sender receives this information, the receiver will receive the information. That information is supposed to do something, isn't it? So in today's message, the sharing we are having today, we want to believe that it will build us. It will improve the way we communicate one to another. So in communication, we communicate to different people. We communicate in different channels. We communicate to God, and God communicates to us. We communicate to one another, communicate to your family, your children. Where there is the exchange of information, that is what we call communication. And communication is not only through the word. There are so many ways of communication. We have also nonverbal communication. Can communicate nonverbal. We will see how communication. So there is more that we communicate nonverbally than what we communicate verbally. So in our communication, when you are communicating, like the way I am doing to you, I'm required to give information that I can attest to it, or information that is true, that will make you as the receiver trust that this information I'm giving you is true information or is correct information. So in communication, you are supposed to verify the information you give. You are supposed to give very clear information. You are supposed to give complete information. You are supposed to give precise information. You are supposed to give reliable information. You are supposed to give the right information. So when you are talking, for example, if today I'm talking to the ladies of Deliverance Church Ilwai, and I'm giving you, or I'm teaching you on how to communicate. The information I'm giving you today, received well, and the receiver, they should be able to tell that information. Yes, I think it is correct, or that information, I think it needs to be checked. Some of the information that, the example I will give about checking the information that you said, or the information that you communicate to people. These days, tuko na something called mtandao. True or false? And sometimes we receive information from a sender. And the sender may not be you. That sender may have also received that information from another sender. And what happens when I read this information, I will say, this information, I think it's good information I want to share with my sisters. So what do? I forward that information. So when you forward that information, what do you see? You will see response coming from the different people. Because again, when we are talking about communication, we are supposed to look at the people you are communicating with. Because there is some information that you can only communicate to a given category of people. For example, the Ladies of Deliverance Church Luai. So what will you think about me as the sender of the information? My sister here.
You are a supporter.
Mm-hmm.
You are a supporter. And maybe you have some interest in.
Yeah, you think I'm a supporter of Wajakoyo and I want to bring you on board so that you can join me in supporting Wajakoya. I want to give one of his agenda, the one he was saying that if he's elected the president, he will allow us to grow Bangi. And I'm sharing that information. Jane, what do you think about Sister Rosemary? I'm sharing it here in our channel, Ladies of Deliverance Church Luai. What will you take of it?
Interest in Bangi.
Mm-hmm.
You want people to support you. You are campaigning for.
I'm campaigning for him. So why am I saying? I'm saying when it comes to the communication that we want to share, or when we are communicating, first and foremost, read from the book of Proverbs 15. It is a long chapter, but I want us to go through it because I want to pick some of the points from that book. Proverbs chapter 15. So I'll ask one of the sisters to read for us. And let's just go through it.
Proverbs 15, verse 1. A gentle answer deflects anger, but harsh words make steadfast prayer. The tongue of the wise makes knowledge appealing, but the mouth of the fool belches out foolishness. The Lord is watching everything. The heart of a fool has none to give. The Lord detests the sacrifices of the wicked, but he delights in the prayers of the upright. The Lord detests the way of the wicked, but he loves those who pursue godly. Whoever abandons the right path will be fearless. Whoever hates correction will die. Even death and destruction hold no secret from the Lord. How much more does he know the human heart? Focus is to be corrected, so they stay away from the light. A glad heart makes a happy man. A broken heart crushes the spirit. A wise person is angry for knowledge, while the fool feeds on the pride. For the forgotten, every day brings trouble. For the happy heart, life is a continual feast. Better to have little with the fear of the Lord than to have great strength and inner calm. A book of vegetables with someone you love is better than stay with someone you hate. A hot-tempered person starts fighting. A cool-tempered person stops them. Unless the person today is blocked right, but the path of the upright is an open highway. Sensible children bring joy to their father. Foolish children despise their mother. Foolishness brings joy to those who do not know. A sensible person stays on the right path. Plans go wrong for lack of advice. Many advisors bring success. Everyone enjoys fighting. Everyone enjoys a fight, beating in life. It is wonderful to say it is the right thing, the right time. The path of life leads upward for the wise. They leave the grave behind. The Lord tears down the house from the house, but He protects the property from the wicked. The Lord says hypocrites, but He delights in pure words. Greed brings greed, the hope, but those who hate right will lose. The heart of the godly thinks carefully towards evil. The mouth of the wicked overflows with evil words. The Lord is far from the wicked, but He hears the prayer of the righteous. A cheerful brings joy. Good news takes.
In this chapter, there are several verses that has made reference to the tongue. There are verses that talk of instructions and understanding, and there are references that are referring to the lips. You know, in communication, we use the verbal. Let's forget about the non-verbal. In verbal communication, we use the tongue and we use the lips. So in the first verse of this book, it says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. The tongue of the wise uses knowledge aright, but the mouth of the foolish pours out foolishness. So in communication, when we open our mouth to speak, what comes out of our mouth? The word of God says, out of the fullness of heart, the mouth speaks. So when we are communicating, we are supposed to be guided out, that you teach me how to speak. And in that book of Jeremiah, we see God touching the lips of Jeremiah to give him the words to speak. So the bottom line of communication for a Christian, it should be guided by the wisdom of God, so that you'll be able, even when you receive whatever information you receive, before you share that information with anybody, ask God to give you the wisdom to be able to vet that information that you want to share, to be able to understand this information I am sharing. Is it going to build my sister? Is it going to build my children? Is it going to build my spouse? Or is it going to destroy? Is it going to be foolishness? Because we are told here that the mouth of fools pours out foolishness. So in our communication, we should be very careful so that we do not pour what? Foolishness. We do not pour out foolishness. So it is us to ask God to give us the wisdom to know what you expected to learn from our communication. Are we together, my sisters? Yes, that's why I've not tailored. I know in communication, there is communication in the workplace, there is communication with our spouses, there is communication with our children. But right now I'm looking at generally communication, because the direction we have been given in this book of life is that we need to be wise in our communication. We need to be wise in the way we communicate, irrespective of where you are. Because even in the workplace, when we communicate and people know us, that, oh, this is Sister Rosemary, and I'm somewhere and I'm speaking and I'm communicating, and they listen, there is that which they get. There are those ones who will say, I think my sister is getting out of track. Isn't it? Because the way we communicate with one another, people can tell a lot about instances whereby somebody may communicate something, and because they have not verified that information, or they have not looked at the people you are talking to. Hawa ni watu wa aina gani? Unaona mtu anatuma message na immediately unaona mtu tu anatoka kwa hiyo group. You know, that is also communication, isn't it? It is communication, but it is an unverbal communication. But for you who have sent that message, if you sat down and try to analyze what you are communicating, you will get that feedback that this message I have sent haikuchukuliwa vizuri na my sender on the other side. Na ndio unaona mtu anaona, for me, because I do not want to exchange, because I also don't want to stir anger. Unaona mtu anafanya nini? Anatoka. Huyo mtu anatoka, anaenda. And it happens in our social life in so many ways. Unaona hata kwa conference kama hii, naweza simama hapa and I'm saying and I say something and somebody feels, my sister hapo labda ameniongelelea. Na afanya nini? Atoke, si ni kweli? Yes. Na probably hata siku just ask a simple question. Jana the conference was ongoing. Ni wangapi walikuwa kwa conference ya jana? Most of us were here. I'll just ask 3 people and you just give us the answer. Don't be concerned about what will the other people who are here think about that answer I'm giving. Yes, I was not here yesterday, but I asked my sister here. Yesterday, ulisoma nini kwa conference ya jana?
How to deal with the conflict.
Okay, good. My sister alisoma how to deal with conflict. Aya, Mary, ulikuwa hapa jana? Ulisoma nini jana?
Mwombezi kama mama. Nikata hapo prayer. Yes, we pray about.
Okay. Wamutunga, ulisoma nini jana?
In the family, in the society.
Okay. Haya, Nyagodhi, ulisoma nini jana? Sorry? Ilininenea. Differently, si ni kweli? Because sisi tuko na different needs when we come here, and all of us have different expectations when we come to a place like this. Normally when we go to the workplace, conferences like this, the first thing we do before we begin, we ask, what is your expectation? And why do we ask what is your expectation? Because we come here with different expectations. And the speaker may speak here, I can stay here and say many things, but in the end of this, soka tukisema, na hata mimi hata afadhali ningekaa kwa nyumba nifanye kitu ingine, because your expectation was not met, isn't it? Yes, I feel like, I wasted my day. My expectation, that is not what I expected from that talk. But we'll come to that. We'll address the issue of expectation. So we are saying that in communication, sometimes you may communicate something and it starts nini? It starts anger. Unaona? So when you communicate and you start na mtu na amekasirika, and when you realize that that person umesema kitu yenye imemkwaza, it may be kwako ulimpatia information na ukaona hii ni information itamsaidia, lakini vile alireceive your message alikwazika, and you realized amekwazwa. How did you react to that? How should we react? Good. You should apologize. You apologize to this person, because we said that the purpose of communication, the essence of communicating to one another, is to convey information, is to build one another, you know. And that information, if it has not built that person, what will it do? It will destroy. But your essence of communicating was not to destroy. Your essence of giving that information was to build. So when you communicate and you realize the information that you have given has not built that person, what you should do is to apologize. Apologize to that person for the information you have given imekukwaza, and you make sure that that person amekuwa satisfied, because communication is also supposed to ensure that the giver of the information and the receiver of the information, both of them are satisfied. They are satisfied. And here we are told there's something about verse 4 says, a wholesome tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness therein is a blight in the spirit. A wholesome tongue is a tree of life. So, when we speak, when we convey, when we impart information to the people we are imparting to, that information should be information that gives life to that person. It should be information that builds that person. So I think generally that is, I've looked at the principles, and before now I proceed to the next item, just allow me to ask you, what is your expectations? Because we want to ensure that we leave this place being satisfied. We did not just come here and we leave the way we came. We want to leave this place feeling that our expectations are satisfied. And I will start with my sister here. When the ladies said they want to be taught about communication, for you as an individual, our sister cheerleader, what is your expectation from this class today? She wants to communicate effectively. She is a mother. When she's communicating to her children, she wants to ensure that she's communicating effectively. She's a wife. She wants to communicate effectively to her husband. And she's a lady in the community. You have neighbors there, isn't it? Yeah, and everywhere you go, even when we travel, kwa matatu, tumesikianga hata kwa matatu watu wanakuarushana. So we need to communicate effectively when she's, yes, we come to our sister here. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay.
Sitakuangusha mtu ama hashword ama answer back hashing. I'll talk so good.
So our sister here wants It is also effective, but she doesn't want to talk harshly. You know, in communication, sometimes we can communicate very good information to our children. Let me use the children. But sometimes the tone that we'll use becomes a bit harsh, isn't it? I don't know what that is what my sister is saying. She wants to communicate, but she doesn't want to sound harsh. You're soft communication, effective communication. So we look at the issue of the tone in communication. Our sister here, what is it that you expect today?
They have been talking or communicating with other people. Have I been hurting them or am I right track?
Okay, she wants to evaluate herself. Because all of us have been communicating, isn't it? And I want to believe that all of us, we have been communicating. And the way we have been communicating, we know we have been communicating well, isn't it? But we are here today to see, is there anything that I've been doing that I need to improve? Because I am sure we have been good communicators, because we have raised our children, and the children are very good in giving feedback. They will tell you that, Avila umeniongelesha, please talk to me in a polite manner. You know, so we have been getting feedback. So we wanted to evaluate ourselves today and see how can we communicate effectively. So we are going to look at effective communication. How do we communicate effectively, listener? Communication is a two-way. Whenever we talk of communication, we are talking of a two-way communication. Sometimes there are those people that when you are talking to them or giving them instructions, they interrupt you. I don't know whether you have come across that. Somebody, umeanza kuongea na hujamaliza hata vile ulikuwa unataka kumaliza, and somebody else mwenye ulikuwa unaongelesha has already interrupted you, anataka kuuliza swali. So for you who is communicating, how should you respond? For you who is communicating, the best thing, first and foremost, you give this person an opportunity. Listen to what they are saying. You can even interrupt me in this class and tell me, Sister Rosemary, I need a clarification there. So what should I do? I will stop and listen to what you are saying. Because when I listen, then I will make you to become more attentive. You will listen to what I am saying. So sometimes, there are times we communicate to our children. I don't know whether it's my children ama ni watoto wetu wote. Unataka kuadvise mtoto wako, unamwambia jambo, and even before you finish, ameshaanza kukuambia something else yenye yeye anataka. Ni wangapi wamekuja across that experience? Yes. Before you finish what you are telling your children, they are already interrupting you, and they are telling you what they want or what they want to hear. Listen to them. And after you listen to them, then you'll be able to get the direction to give them the advice that they will listen to. Because when you don't, what happens? It becomes like noise. Sio noise makelele yenye watu wanapiga, but in the mind. Unaona? Na hawezi akafanya nini? Akasikia. Because there is a lot of noise in their, they can't hear what you are saying unless you first listen to them, and then they will be attentive to hear what you are telling them. And the same happens with our spouses. When we are speaking with, sometimes when we communicate to our spouses, how do we communicate to our spouses? Generally women, sisi wanawake tunaongeanga sana. Wazee hawana maneno mingi. True or false? Sometimes mnaongea na unaona mtu amenyamaza, hujui kama anakusikiza, hujui kama mko pamoja, because as I said, communication is a two-way communication. So there are times tuna communicate lakini unaona tu mtu amenyamaza, they are not talking back, unaanza kusema are we together? Unasikia vile ninasema? Yeah? Do you hear what I'm saying? Even that sometimes you keep quiet. You keep quiet. Ponder about what you are discussing. And if you realize that this discussion cannot continue in this tone, there is nothing wrong with postponing for another day when you can communicate calmly. So that is one way of improving on communication. Because sometimes when the atmosphere is not conducive for that communication, please don't continue with that communication, because you will end up doing what? You will either speak foolishness or even you will stir anger, and communication, we said if it does not build, it will break, and you don't want it to break. Number 2, avoid use of words that are not clear or words that are confusing. For example, if you are talking to your children, you are communicating to your children, you understand that the words I'm using is not relevant for that group of people that I'm talking to. Yeah? Stop talking in parables. Yes, you are talking to your children. Talk to your children in words they can understand. And when you are talking on a one-to-one, it is a good, or it is the right way of communication is facing them the way you are facing me. Unaona, eye-to-eye contact. And that way, we can see that we are in sync, we are communicating. Even that eye contact, it is talking a lot about it. So one way of improving our communication, our sisters, I am saying whenever you are talking to your spouse, you are talking to your children, face them, have that eye contact with them, and allow them to give you feedback, so that you can be able to know whether they are receiving the message that you are giving them. Huyu ni nani ananitumia message, ama huyu ni nani ananipigia, you know. So in effective communication, you are supposed to give your full thought to what you are communicating, what you are discussing, including your body language, because we said that the body language speaks a lot. For example, I'm here today talking to you, na niko na simu hapa, na nipigiwe simu ama message ingie, nawaongelesha tu na niko hapa. What will you get of my communication? My mind is not here, isn't it? I have my attention is being drawn elsewhere. So when it comes to communication, communicate, assign that specific discussion you are having, you give it your full attention. Give it your full attention. When you are speaking to your spouse, don't go speaking to your spouse and you keep on receiving calls and getting out to receive the phone calls. It is very common. I was leading another, actually it is not leading, there is somebody, we are a family, and a family needs to have time together. So when you have your family time, It is family time. It should not be disrupted. So what do? They introduce a basket in their house. So when they are discussing important matters in their home, simu zote ziwekwe wapi? Kwa kikapu pale. In silence. Mpaka tumalize business of the day. It is our time to have a family time together. A family where you sit down, you discuss your issues. The children, they give the parents their issues. The parents, they give the children the instructions they want to give without any interruption. Simu zote pale kwa kikapu. Tukimaliza, tunachukua. And the same happens. It's meal time, food is served on the table. Simu zote zinawekwa pale kwa kikapu. Tumalize kula, after that, watu wanaweza wanachukua simu zao na wanaendelea. I'm not saying that I have borrowed that habit, but that is somebody who was just trying to share how they have improved communication, quality family time with the families by trying to have that disciplined way of ensuring that you give your whole attention. This is a good idea. This is the way we should go allowed it. Am I being open-minded? I'm saying, this is my family. You are my family here. We are here. Niwaambie simu zote pale na ziwekwe in silent mode mpaka tumalize hii session. Am I open-minded? Pastor Lydia? I'm not. Because you could be having a better opinion than what I have just suggested. So we are saying, in effective communication, you have ideas, yes, but let also other people come with their ideas, and you respect their ideas, and then you agree on the best solution or the best option. So whether you are communicating with your children, whether you are communicating with your spouse, whether you are communicating with your colleagues in your workplace, whether we are communicating the way we are communicating as the family of Deliverance Church Rwai, whenever we have important discussions to make, effective communication requires that we become open-minded. Let's hear the views of the others and also respect their views. Again, when we go for training for adult learning, and we make what we call we call them rules, rules guarding that specific discussion. We say that you must respect the opinions of others. Because if today we came here and we are discussing something, and somebody raises a hand and suggests something, and then we say, that one, apana. What will that person do? That person will withdraw, isn't it? And will not be hata kuwa kwa hii group tuna communicate here, because already tumemshut down. So in communication, effective communication, be open-minded, listen to others, respect their views, and where you do not buy their views, you don't buy your view, but you don't shut them down. And especially with the children, I realized sometimes when you get to the habit of shutting your child down, sometimes they withdraw. Yeah. Naona mtoto withdraw. Anytime unakaa kuongea, naona mtoto tu anatoka anaenda kufanya vitu zake. Alafu ukimuita umuulize anasema, lakini opinion yangu sio important. I have one child who is like that. Yes. My opinion is not important. Because at one time, I suggest something, you are communicating, na mtu shut that down. So anaona, my opinion is not important in this discussion. So improve on that. Let's hear. The other one is, as we communicate, let's look at the correct media of communication. Sometimes it happens in couples, married couples. that when there are issues in their communication, there are those some who opt to be putting it down. You shift. Initially you used to talk, mnakaa chini mna discuss, lakini inafikanga pahali pengine wengine anaona hii discussion is not taking us anywhere, so watu wanaanza kufanya nini? Kuandika, kuandikiana message. Is that the correct medium for communication for families? I do not know. Probably Pastor Lydia will guide us. But what I'm saying is, ikifika hapo we are lost, yes. That's why I'm saying that is not the correct medium. So when you are communicating with who is who, not the correct medium. Kuna mtu mwenye mnaweza communicate kuandikiana and it is okay, but it's not your spouse and it's not your children, isn't it? Na ionanga saa zingine kwa is very common hata in the workplace. Sometimes where the work relations are so poor and a boss is supposed to give you directions, but badala ya kukuita kupatie this is the way I want you to do, anafanya nini? Anaanza kukuandikia tu sticker na kanaandikwa hapo urgent. Unaona? So unaona mna communicate kwa makaratasi. As the pastor has said, ikifika hapo mumefika pahali penye mnahitaji kuongeleshwa on how you can improve your communication.
That will be
Sorry?
That way becomes good in the workplace for defense.
For communication ya karatasi, I agree with our pastor. Documentation, we call it documentation. Saa zingine, when decisions are made, your boss can call you and instruct you verbally to do 1, 2, 3, but it's not documented somewhere. So if that decision goes somewhere and it backfires, he can easily say, it is so and so who, yeah. So in places where you require that documentation, it is good to have it documented. And when you require that, let it not be in that strip of paper, because hiyo mtu anaweza fanya nini? Anaweza kaplug na akatupe somewhere and there will be no document to make reference to. Sorry?
They use emails.
Yeah, email it is with your family. Yeah, now the first barrier is noise. Noise. The noise can be noise physical. And the noise can be noise, emotional noise. So we should be cautious of what noise is there. So when you are communicating, ensure that you eliminate noise, because noise is a barrier. So you look for a place where there is no interruptions, hakuna makelele, where you can be focused in whatever you are communicating. And sometimes there may not be that physical noise ya magari na makelele unapiga pigwa, but you could be talking to people who are going through emotional noise. Do you know what is emotional noise? Nani anajua what emotional noise is? Yes, saa zingine hata kanisani hapa. Kuna siku utakuja tu church na mhubiri amehubiri na unamwangalia tu hivi. But in your environment, mental, emotional, you are going through a lot of things that it's like noise. They are hindering you from hearing the message. Isn't it? And when I was asking about what we learned yesterday, saa zingine, even when you are there and you are attentive, something inaweza crop in your mind and your mind shifts. Mind shift. Na hapo tu unasikia. You are in a different environment, not where we are even here. Tuko tu hapa. But there are times you could be going through some stuff that is causing that noise that you cannot even hear. But you are here, but you cannot hear what we are saying. So take care of that, avoid that noise. The other barrier could be language barrier. And language barrier, it could be, I'm speaking in a language that you cannot hear. Then it means I'm not communicating with you. And so when you realize that you are in a place that you are talking to people who are from different languages, the remedy is you either have an interpreter to interpret what you are saying, and you have seen it here even in church, so that if this information must be received by that recipient, you must ensure that you can communicate in a common language. From Sheng, they understand there is another language. I don't know what they are calling it. Sorry?
Just giving an example.
Yeah, like Sheng is one of them. You may be there. Na watoto hapo, mko hapo na wao, na wanaongea hapo, unawaambia you are communicating to them something, and among themselves hapo, wana communicate something else that you as a parent you cannot understand what they are saying. It is a barrier, because if you understood that language they were speaking, then you'll be able to either guide them or to collect them or to direct them. So that barrier, their generation, I don't know, I don't know the solution to it, but when we are communicating with our children, it's good to encourage them that this communication we are having is very important for all of us, and it is important for us to speak in a language that all of us can hear and we can share. So wao wakipatana huko na their peers, they can speak their language, there is no problem. But when you are with them, it's good to tell them that this is a barrier and we need to remove it, because whatever we are sharing is important to all of us. All of us, we want to give her some information, that I would like her to communicate to another group somewhere else. But the message I have given her, she may not have received it as clearly as it ought to have been. And then she will take that message and she will communicate to that group. And the way she communicates that information is not the way I would have communicated it myself. And then those people who are there, they will go and communicate that message to another person. And by the time it gets to the third, fourth party, that message is already distorted. And it has become very common. Sometimes an announcement may be made and somebody picks it, tells somebody else, don't tell somebody, and another one. In the long run, you will hear a totally distorted information from the initial information from the source. And that's what I was saying, that when we are communicating, sometimes it's good for us to find out the source of that information. Was that the correct information? Is it that what was intended to be communicated? Let's get the information. People who are hearing this information, is there anybody who came across it? By the way, I didn't know there was the different channels were communicating different information, because I was in the office, and I was being called by somebody who was outside this country, asking me about, oh, have you watched the KTN? Have you watched the Citizen? What is all this about? I said, what is it? Then I was told, if you are in a place where you can watch, just try to check. The information that is being relayed was different information. not know, or nobody can even tell us who was giving the correct information and who was giving the wrong information. But the information was mixed up, it was disorganized. So in essence, there was no communication, because that communication was intended for the user on the other side, who cannot now know what is the exact information. For those who are interested to know the status at that particular time, they could not get the information because the information was disorganized. When you receive it, then you can weigh the information yourself and see, do I agree with this information or do I not agree with it? But don't rush into conclusion before you hear what the message is all about. Another barrier could be I don't know how to put it. Avoid getting annoyed during discussions or during your communication, because anger becomes a barrier to getting the conclusive instruction or information. We read something about anger. That is in Proverbs 15, verse 18. It says, "A wrathful man stirs up strife, but he that is slow to anger quiets strife." And here we said, if you could be discussing with, communicating with your family members, it could be your spouse, it could be your children, and you realize that the discussion is stirring anger, it is advisable that you don't proceed with that discussion if you cannot be able to calm down the situation. You can postpone it to another time when the situation is good. And still in that, the first verse to Lisoma, a soft answer turns away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. Take something and throws it at you. So probably in that discussion, you may have said something that stirred up anger, and he reacts the way he reacts. There is one time I had a counselor advising a lady and was saying that don't engage your husband in those hot discussions. When you realize that you are planning to speak, you want to say something, kimbia weka maji kwa mdomo, tulie. Don't stir anger. Ukiwa na maji kwa mdomo huwezi ongea. Utaongea kweli? Yes. Badala ya kurusha those, the writer of Proverbs says, pouring out foolishness. Ni vyema pia kuchukua maji na tutulie, tugojee anga iende chini. Ask you one question that you should be asking yourself every time you will be opening your mouth to speak, to give advice. You ask yourself, how do I communicate to my spouse? How do I communicate to my spouse? Every time your spouse comes and you need to have a discussion with your spouse, Ask yourself that question. How will I communicate to my spouse? And we said, like Jeremiah, I do not know how to speak to this man. God, I need you to give me the word. I want to give you the message to speak to my spouse. How do I speak to my children? God, I don't know how to speak to these children. But I want you to give me the word to speak to these children. How do I speak to my boss in the office? We go back. God, pour your spirit of wisdom upon me, that as I open my mouth to speak, let me speak words of wisdom. And as you do this every day, I can assure you, your communication will be perfect. Because God says, you ask of him and he shall give to you. Sometimes when we are on the road driving, there are people who, I would say, sometimes unashindwa, na huyu mtu anafikiria aje. Saa zingine nataka kufungua mdomo niseme, God give me a word to say. You know, when you feel like somebody has stirred up your anger, let's always remember to ask God to give us the wisdom. Even as you open your mouth to speak, you speak wisdom. The words of wisdom. Because God gives the spirit of wisdom, God gives the spirit of knowledge, God gives the spirit of understanding. So in our day-to-day communication, let's always come back to God to help us, because we do not know how to speak, but God enables us to speak. Non-verbal communication how do we communicate non-verbally to our families? Who will share to us one of your non-verbal communication to your family? Realize that your face is saying something. But I realize when you live with those people who have known you for a very long time, when they look at you, they will tell there is something you are saying. Sometimes even my children will ask me, Mom, what are you thinking about? You know, in another way, they are telling you that face is saying something. You know, non-verbal, the facial expression. Naongea na mtu, saa zingine kuna watu wanachapanga mdomo. Sikia tu mtu naitango aje. Hiyo. Yes. Umeongeleshwa, hujasema lakini you click. And that one also communicates something. I heard of another one. I won't say I know much about it. But I would say it is communication because it came from somebody when I feel it was communicating to him. Akasema, huyo mzee akasema, kuna hizi malesos tunanunuanga ziko na maneno mingi. Sijui kama tukienda ku live together. I think the man noted it was like a trend every time. Ama labda alikuwa akiona shauri yako na yeye pia anafikiria it is a communication. I wouldn't know. But it's good. It's good also to take care of those things. You may not have taken note of it, but labda kuna mtu ana-interpret that, shauri yako umeshafunga leso. Kitembea tu mbele yake hivi namwambia shauri yako. Yes. Non-committal language. Any other? My sisters? So I wish to open up this discussion if there is time. Jen, do we have time? Oh, we have 10 minutes. We have 10 minutes to react, because, sorry? 9 minutes. The words that are coming from your mouth, the tone. Yeah, so as again we say, as I said, you could be saying something positive, but the tone, how is the tone of it? Is it soft answer? Ama ni toni ya hasila? So kama tumekuwa tukiongea na harsh tone, let's tone it down. Let's look at our fissure. Sometimes we may not even be aware, but it still speaks a lot about us. To those people who have known us for long, when we change our faces, they will know what we are saying. The attitude of your heart. And that's why we are saying, let's tell God, I do not know how to speak. Because God sees our hearts. God knows our hearts. Righteous heart. Let those things that come out of your mouth speak of the goodness of God. Speak wisdom. Speak. Father, help us to become wise in our communication to our families and to all those around us. That King of Kings and Lord of Lords, even as we speak, in whichever place you said us to be, our speech will speak of you. Our speak will portray what you have put in us. We are here, Lord, that you speak to us by your Spirit. We are here to be taught. Give us a teachable spirit and help us, our Father and our God, that in all our undertakings we look up unto you, Lord. That you mold us to be the children that you want us to be. You mold us to become the mothers that you want us to become the wives that you want us to be, Jehovah God. That mighty Savior, you'll be able to build our children. You'll be able to build our homes.
Thank you so much. Okay.